morning. How are you? It is a beautiful day here in Zion, and I am overlooking this canyon and thinking about mythology. The last couple days, been talking about story and the power of narrative medicine, and I woke up this morning thinking about mythology and how these days we tend to think of a myth as something that is untrue, right? It's like myth as opposed to a fact. And, it'd be interesting to go on Google. I get no service out here, but to, type into your Google search bar 10 myths about, and then see what it fills in, right? Because it's going to be untrue things. It's going to be things you think are true but aren't. And that's not what mythology is. Myths are stories that are true outside of space and time. They are true no matter when they're told, no matter where they're told, and they have their own life force to them. They are their own living beings, and as living beings do, they transform and shift depending, over time, and depending on where they're told, depending on the context within which they're told. And they encode so much information where, the storyteller may be telling this myth to get a point across about, compassion, for example. But an audience member who has just gone through, the death of a parent, say, may hear a story about faith and perseverance through difficulty. And both those things are true simultaneously. That's the beauty of a living entity, is that the storyteller doesn't know everything that they're communicating. The story, the myth itself, has its own energy to it. It makes me think of, in my romantic partnership, we were talking the other day about how there really are three beings in our relationship. And there's the two of us, of course, and then the relationship itself is this third living entity that needs attention and nourishment and negotiation. And there's this energy that is a third thing. It's not just me, it's not just her, it's this third thing, and that requires its own relationship, its own tending. And so, yeah, it also brings up this concept of explanatory pluralism. And I love that phrase. It really just means, multiple ways to explain things based on what's appropriate in the moment, right? It's a fancy way of talking about code switching, right? And I think about, there have been times in my life, and sometimes more successful than others, and it happens all the time in politics. Like AOC just recently got in trouble for switching her dialect based on the audience she was talking to. And I don't know, for millennials, of course, you don't talk to your parents the same way you talk to your friends, the same way you talk to your teacher. You code switch, and we all do this quite naturally, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's a sign of intelligence in a lot of ways, and this understanding that in different contexts, different stories want to be told and are going to be most effective. So in relationship to healing and medicine, as an Ayurvedic doctor, I think about this all the time, where if your appendix is infected and going to burst, if your arm is broken, you need to go to a hospital. I am not the right doctor for you to see. But if you have chronic digestive troubles, if you have ongoing headaches, if you have trouble sleeping and are waking up at 2 a.m. every night, then my stories are likely to be appropriate for your healing and holing process, right? And it doesn't make Western medicine untrue. It just means that that story is for a different purpose. And it brings up for me what I would call the tragedy of any kind of fundamentalism, right? Where if Western medicine is true and the only thing that's true and always the only thing that's true, then then you're missing out on so many stories and missing out on so many different approaches that might be of benefit, right? And it doesn't mean that that any of it's untrue. It can all be true together, right? Like thinking of music, you know, a single note can be very beautiful and powerful and meaningful, but really it's about the context, right? It's the notes around it that give it meaning and give it that resolution that's so inspiring and so satisfying. And so, you know, all the notes are true at the same time, right? C and E are both true, and that's called harmony, right? And so if the only note you play is C, then it's limited, right? And so yeah, code switching, explanatory pluralism, and just understand it's all about the context of what story is most appropriate in that moment for our healing and holding. So I'll leave you with that, and let you look at this magical canyon for another minute here. There's some construction going on the road in the valley, but that led to a road closure that has allowed me to have this place all to myself this morning. I'll forgive. Okay, take care. Be well.